Hello my fellow Archons, and welcome to the third day of KeyForge Christmas. With the release of Winds of Exchange on the horizon, I realized that a number of my past videos are becoming a little outdated in terms of their information. And so in today's video, I'll be going over all the updates to those past videos that don't currently include all these fresh new Winds of Exchange cards. Without further ado, let's get into it. In my fourth ever video, I went over all the unique counters in KeyForge, such as Doom counters and Depth counters. Well, Winds of Exchange has introduced even more of these, quite a few more than I expected honestly. We've got to start out with one of my favorites, a new rare from House Mars, Revo Hooligans, who has elusive and reads, after Reap, put a paint counter on an artifact. While that artifact has a paint counter, it belongs to House Mars instead of its other houses. The potential of this card is just so cool. Imagine putting your own Nightapult or Flea Market into Mars so they can be used on a Mars turn. Or it can mess with the opponent as well. If they don't have Mars in their deck, it'll make their artifacts virtually unusable when they have a paint counter on them. Or imagine putting a paint counter on an enemy artifact, then using something like Uncommon Currency to take it into your control. Cross-set, that could lead to some crazy scenarios. The next new one is the Trade counter, found on the Aember Road artifact in Equidon. It reads Omni, put one trade counter on the Aember Road, then gain one Ember for each trade counter on it. Give control of the Aember Road to your opponent. So as you can see, each player has to think about the risk involved while using this card, because once they increase the amount of trade counters on it and gain their Ember, it goes across the board to the opponent, who will also have the opportunity to use it for even more. I believe timing will be key when using the Aember Road, or having the ability to destroy it after using it. Or play Magistrate Crispus, who will keep it under your control every use as long as he's alive. In Unfathomable, we're given the Hatch counter of Extrematode Infection, an upgrade that reads Play. Put 3 Hatch counters on Extrematode Infection. At the start of your turn, remove 1 Hatch counter from Extrematode Infection. Then, if it has no Hatch counters, destroy this creature and make 3 token creatures. Where you place this upgrade presents some interesting decisions. Placing it on one of your own creatures with a good destroyed effect would be a decent option, especially on something like Kamalani, so you make 5 token creatures when all the Hatch counters are gone. Or you could put it on an enemy creature so it gets destroyed, but it'll take multiple turns for it to go off. And of course, it's all dependent on the creature actually sticking around long enough for Extrematode Infection to go off, which with 3 entire Hatch counters is quite a long wait. The next unique counter is the Wisdom counter. Aristotle Mimus reads, after Reap, if Aristotle Mimus has a Wisdom counter, draw 1 card, archive 1 card, and play a card from your archives. Otherwise, you may play a card from your archives. Now, that's quite a boisterous effect, reminiscent of something like Project ZYX or Flaphosaurus, but you'll notice that there's no built-in method of getting a Wisdom counter on Aristotle Mimus. That's because he always comes with 2 other creatures, Sacropterosaurus and Platypelta. Sacropterosaurus reads, after Reap, draw 1 card. You may put a Wisdom counter on Platypelta. Platypelta reads, after Reap, if Platypelta has a Wisdom counter, draw 1 card, archive 1 card, and you may put a Wisdom counter on Aristotle Mimus. Otherwise, archive 1 card. So, the chain starts with Sacropterosaurus, then Platypelta, and lastly Aristotle Mimus, but in the end, it's just one of the most convoluted methods of efficiency I've ever seen. The whole aspect of playing cards directly out of your archives is neat, but the need for all 3 of them to hit the board at a similar time and simultaneously survive for multiple turns in a row is just far too much to ask in most occasions, and I really don't see these 3 making much of an impact in an average game of KeyForge. They almost remind me of the Igon pair from Worlds Collide in their inconsistency and how much impact they'll actually make in any given match. The last of the new unique counters are the Yay and Nay counters, both showing up on the artifact Election, which has undergone some major changes throughout development. The final version reads, each creature gains after Reap, put a Yay or a Nay counter on Election. If Election has 6 Yay counters on it, destroy it and destroy each creature. If Election has 6 Nay counters on it, destroy each artifact. So no matter which counter reaches 6 first, something of high impact will happen, whereas older versions of the card did far less if Nay counters were placed on it. It's a really interesting concept for a card, giving both players a say in what gets destroyed. If you're substantially ahead on board, you'll have much more of a voice in which counters end up on Election, but honestly, I'm not quite sure of the proper timing in which to even play this card. If you have any insight, be sure to let me know what you guys think down in the comments. 2 unique counter reprints show up in Winds of Exchange, both from Dark Tidings. Eclectic Ambrosius with his Knowledge counter returns, though this time without his Evil Twin version, as does Killigog's Trench with its Depth counters. And that wraps up all the unique counters introduced in Winds of Exchange. The next video to update is one of my personal favorites, the history of key cheats in KeyForge. Key cheats really seem to be a type of card that KeyForge is moving away from, because there are hardly any in Winds of Exchange, especially when compared to early sets. There are no reprinted key cheats in this set, only 2 new ones that implement the token creature mechanic. At this point, we all know of Blorb Hive and its accompanying Blorb token creature, quickly rising in the ranks of iconic KeyForge characters. The other new key cheat is found in the Compacts of Equidon, Token of Appreciation. It reads, play, make a token creature. Forge a key at +7 current cost, reduced by 1 Ember for each friendly token creature. If your deck has the ability to make plenty of token creatures with cards like Guiltspine School, Brawl In, Inspiring Oration, or multiple copies of Higher On, forging a key with Token of Appreciation should be no problem. Unless your opponent has lots of anti-token cards, I believe this is one key cheat that should go off somewhat consistently, especially if your token creature belongs to Equidon so that you can reap with them first. Quite a while ago, I asked the question, what happened to warding in KeyForge, and I took a look at its evolution throughout the sets. Well, once again, in Winds of Exchange, there's not a whole lot of warding going on. Paraguardian returns from Worlds Collide, one of the more balanced warding cards in my opinion. Also in Saurian, we have Arm the Plebeians, which quite simply makes a token creature and wards it. Pax Soriana is a very interesting card, giving you 2 Ember Pips and warding each creature, both friendly and enemy. Those 2 Ember Pips are pretty enticing, and if played when you're well ahead on board, can make warding enemy creatures absolutely worth it. Combined with City-State Interest, it's almost like the classic City-State Interest Ancient Power combo. And while we're here, it's the one card in the set with multiple raw Ember Pips, so that covers our update for all the cards in KeyForge with multiple Ember icons. Cultist in Unfathomable is the token creature that always comes with Tangaika and Primordial Vault, and it now reads, action, destroy cultist. If you do, ward a friendly creature. With lots of cultists, that's a lot of warding, but sometimes you may just be better off reaping with them. Trading an Ember for a ward is not always the right move. Also, you need multiple cultists on the board in order to summon Tangaika, so if you're constantly destroying them to ward things, you're not advancing towards that goal very quickly. The last warding card in Winds of Exchange is White Aeronaut, one of the 4 Aeronauts that always comes with Noxtillion, the crazy Ultra-Gravitron-esque Mars creature that reads, Noxtillion cannot be used unless you have used 1 or more friendly Mars creatures this turn. Each friendly pilot creature cannot be dealt damage or destroyed. White Aeronaut is one of those pilot creatures that support Noxtillion, and he has an action ability that allows him to ward and fully heal Noxtillion. With Noxtillion and all 4 Aeronauts on the board, your opponent will really just need a full board wipe in order to deal with all of them, because the other 3 alongside the white one all work to supplement Noxtillion in some pretty cool ways as well, such as boosting its power, or giving it splash attack 3, or allowing it to wipe the entirety of the opponent's board with a single fight. Next up, I analyzed the poison keyword, a little used mechanic that interested me enough to make a video about it. The only poison reprint is Fuguru, a classic Dark Tidings creature, and beyond that there are actually a number of new poison cards, all of them also showing up in Unfathomable. First is the token creature Raider, at 1 power, who simply gains poison when it's your turn. Toxicuda Venom is an upgrade that gives any creature you want poison, especially frightening when given to someone like Asia the Inconspicuous. Skullback Crab is a nuisance to fight into, its poison protecting that stealing action ability. And lastly, Kelping Hands is the new Doom Sigil, reading Omni, destroy Kelping Hands. For the remainder of the turn, each friendly creature gains poison. The fact that it's an Omni makes it that much more threatening, meaning even the smallest of your creatures can still take out the largest of enemy targets in a fight. The next KeyForge topic that interested me was the evolution of Purging, a very threatening mechanic, causing players to permanently lose cards from their deck for the rest of the game. Destructive Analysis and Martians Make Bad Allies are both reprinted, and Destructive Analysis in particular is a phenomenal reprint for the archive meta Mars has in this set, with cards like Scoop Up and Memrox the Red. Also in Mars is Replay Pod, a really cool one-time use artifact that purges itself, though its awesome ability makes up for it. It reads, each friendly Mars creature gains destroyed, place this creature face down under Replay Pod. Action, put each card under Replay Pod into your hand. Purge Replay Pod. It gives each of your Mars creatures a second life, allowing you to get them back as they're destroyed and drop all of them at once on a later turn. It also keeps them out of your discard pile, safe from things like Creeping Oblivion or Yanthi Ghostfin. Yanthi is an elusive 3-power creature from Unfathomable, reading, after Reap, purge a creature from a discard pile. If you do, make a token creature. Yanthi is like Eye of Judgment as an uncommon Reap ability, that also rewards you with a token creature for using it. Lastly, we have Auction Off in Equidon, which lets you purge an artifact and its controller gains 1 Ember. At first glance, it seems to just be a weaker version of Reclaimed by Nature from Untamed, but paired with something like Uncommon Currency, it actually has some cool uses. Take control of an enemy artifact with Uncommon Currency, then use Auction Off to purge it while it's on your side, so you gain the Ember like it's your artifact. There are just a couple of videos left to update, and the next one is my video on the evolution of Enraging in KeyForge, another one of those little used mechanics, this one in particular mostly failing to see much of an impact on the game since its introduction in Worlds Collide. Interestingly, there are no reprints in this set that include Enraging, they're all new. Naturally, the majority of it shows up in Brobnar, where it belongs. Brawl-In makes 2 token creatures and enrages them. Crim Torchtooth enrages each of his neighbors when he fights, the drawback for fighting with a huge 7-power creature with Splash Attack 4. Still, better than Narp by a long shot, in my opinion. Might Club is the new Gauntlet of Command, readying and enraging a creature rather than readying and fighting with it. Not quite as powerful since it doesn't enable the house cheating aspect that Gauntlet provided, but still solid nonetheless. Berserker is one of Brobnar's token creatures, entering play ready and enraged, although it destroys itself when it fights. That fight effect is negated if you have Revna Starsong on the board, however, the rare creature that Berserker is linked with. With Revna on the board, Berserker is a terrifying force of combat, an even stronger version of Gizelhart's Zealot. Jedhammer is one of the strongest members of the Bracken band, with a destroyed effect that reads, ready and enrage each other friendly Brobnar creature, essentially allowing you to get a second fight or use out of all of them if you destroy him on your turn after using the rest of your Brobnar board. There are a couple cards outside of Brobnar that receive the enrage mechanic as well. Pandulf the Provoker has 4 power, 2 armor, taunt, and enrages an enemy creature when he's played. Brain Dart has a classic Mars effect, enraging an enemy creature and having it capture one from its own side. So in the end, Enraging still isn't the most impactful mechanic out there, but I think it's implemented just fine in Winds of Exchange. Not too much, not too little. The last video to take a look at is the one where I analyzed big KeyForge creatures, mainly the ones with 8 or more power. Winds of Exchange introduced a number of these, and the only reprints are the Chosen One and Tweak Kraken from Unfathomable. By far, the largest creature in the set is Tangaika, who gives you 2 Ember upon play, though quite a steep condition must be met before he can hit the board. Saurian was given 3 massive creatures in this set. I mentioned Magistrate Crispus earlier. His effect is pretty situational, but he acts as great tech against decks with lots of trading and swapping going on in Equidon, or even combos well with things like the Ember Road. Chaosodon has 10 power and Splash Attack 3, but deals 3 damage to each of his neighbors before fighting, making his placement in your battle line quite important. Rampaging Brutodon has 12 power and 1 armor, and makes a token creature upon play, but you need to destroy a friendly creature in order to even use him. So that token creature you just made will probably end up acting as fodder for using Rampaging Brutodon. Mars was known for having some pretty beefy creatures in past sets, such as Grommet or Chuffape, and that certainly hasn't changed in Winds of Exchange. They received Grondel, a 9 power 2 armor creature that reads, play, make 2 token creatures. At the start of your turn, destroy the least powerful creature. He's very weird. Making 2 token creatures is nice, but they'll most likely just end up as fodder for his Fangtooth Cavern-like passive effect. Played under the right battle line conditions, Grondel could be pretty useful, but I don't know how often those conditions may appear. Equidon has Belligerent Guard, an 8 power creature who enters play ready, but the opponent draws a card when you play him. And honestly, I'm perfectly fine with that most of the time. An 8 power ready creature is pretty insane. You can pretty much play him and take out whatever enemy creature you want, or just reap and perhaps threaten check. Lastly, we've got Frost Giant from Brobnar, at 18 power who does not ready during your ready card step. At first, that may seem like a massive drawback, and you may wonder how on earth you'd ever get to use him, but he actually always comes with a few cards that ready creatures, be that in the form of Mavericks or Legacies, or even just regular Winds of Exchange cards like Shockherder or Might Club. He's not easy to use, but at 18 power, he can soundly take out just about any threat you need dealt with once you do manage to use him. And that'll do it for day 3 of KeyForge Christmas. We're only a quarter of the way through these 12 days, so there's still lots of content to come. Let me know what you guys think of all these cards and the new steps taken in the evolution of certain mechanics. I would love to hear your thoughts. And of course, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any of these 12 days, or the giveaway happening on January 5th when the 12 days are over. As always, I can't wait to see you all again in the next one. See you later.